let's shift gears a little bit. We're going to kick over down to Southern California, and I want to introduce Richard De La Hoya. He is our commercial territory manager in Southern California for BMD, and he's going to walk us through two unbelievable projects. It's going to blow you away with some of the challenges that were presented to him and the team, and some of the solutions that they came up with. And again, this one thing you'll hear from here is just teamwork, and also the ability to pivot and collaborate to come up with the best ideas to complete the project. Richard, let's kick it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, depending on where you're located. Let me put my reading glasses on here. So the first thing I want to do is just, obviously I was introduced there, so our focus within the millwork division of BMD, where I work at, is on the exterior windows and exterior doors. So that's basically in a nutshell what we do. So I want to look at this case study first here in San Diego. It's in downtown San Diego. This is the Guild Hotel, and it was a conversion. It's a 1920 era building, and as you can see by the logo at the top there, you'll see YMCA. So this was originally designed to be the YMCA for the military. Many of you may know that San Diego has a strong history of military presence, so that was the use for this building. And then it was vacant for several years, and we're going to look at the conversion of it to a high-end hotel in San Diego. Okay, let's see here. All right, so this is not the front elevation, but this is the back elevation. And so I love mid-construction pictures. They tell a story. So what you see here in white are the original steel windows, pretty common in 1920 era buildings in Southern California and probably Northern California as well. So there was a challenge. This is historic restoration. So following that process, typically they want to restore if at all possible by any means. And then if you can't restore, then you need to replace. So from the floor's second floor on up, the city's historic review board approved for replacement for various reasons. Some of it was there were missing windows. It's hard to replicate these steel windows. The glazing had wire mesh inside of it, and that was a very costly replacement feature. And so for various reasons, they allowed for replacement, again, from the second floor on up. The first floor was all restoration. And so what we did here is, if you look at these steel windows, I'm going to show you what we did. So if we look at this slide here, I know this is brown here, but this is still also a steel window. What we did is we took a Marvin next generation double hung window, full frame window, and what we wanted to do is how can we integrate it into the original steel window frame. The Historic Review board really liked the idea of keeping the original steel window frame. So ultimately it's a sash replacement, for lack of a better words, but we're really taking a full frame window and inserting it into the original steel window frame. And so this is the process of how we collaborated with everybody. We weren't the first call to this project. There were probably about that's probably exaggerating, probably 5 or 6 manufacturers. That's how stories go sometimes. They exaggerate. There'll be 20 by 2 years from now. But there are about 5 to 6 manufacturers that came before us, and everybody could make a product, but what they were looking for is people to just solve problems and for somebody to come on site and really offer consultation. So on the BMD side, us being the Marvin manufacturer representatives, we were definitely integral and on site on this job, along with our Marvin dealer, as well as the contractor, as well as the architect, as well as the waterproofer. So there was a lot of collaboration. So what you see here is us just mocking things up. How do we get from point A to point B? So Marvin has a wide variety of aluminum extruded subsills. And so what we did is we went on site and we started snapping in different pieces to see what would work and what wouldn't work. And this fit nice here. as you can see where I detailed it. And then when I slid it over to the edge, this is the original steel casing profile, integral to the steel window frame. And then this detail isn't so pretty, right? It doesn't marry up very well. So we'll show how we contended with that in a little bit. And by the way, this is an aluminum clad window, Marvin window, wood to the inside. So it's factory painted black to the inside, it's ebony exterior, and then we're able to match the original profiles of the original steel windows. This is just a quick snapshot showing Marvin's subsill availability stock items. And then here's just a drawing. So in the process, this wasn't the final thing, this was just showing the process. So here are some drawings that we created with our BMD tech department. You know, again, consulting with the waterproofing consultant, the contractor, the installer, all the people I mentioned. So you can see here is the original steel window frame, and then basically we would insert that next generation double hung into that frame. And so it was just the collaboration, it was the drawing, just kind of showing you the process. And then here's us just continuing with that in real life. So you see here all the Marvin next generation double hung windows. Did as we had the sash removed, and then we'd insert the frame into the original steel window frame. Imagine all the cost and time that we saved the builder and the owner by not having them removed every single one of these original steel windows, because that was the plan originally. So we're able to save a lot of time and money there. But basically we insert that frame, we put through jam fasteners through the pre-drilled spots in the next generation double hung window to tap into the original steel window frame. And then just continuing with the process, here's that subsill, but in ebony. And do you remember when I showed you that detail when we slid over in the process, we slid over that subsill when we were trying to find what would work and when it worked, and I showed you how it was a funky detail? I'll put an arrow here. So it was really trick, in my opinion. The installer did a great job. He took the profile of the original steel casing that you see there, and he created a jig. And what he did is he cut the ends of the subsill profile. He notched them on both sides so that when it was put in place, it fit as if it was meant to be there from the beginning. And then so what you see over here on the right, again, this is still mid-construction, but it's essentially the finished product. Obviously, still has to be cleaned up with some of the construction overspray there. But you can see how everything tied in, fit perfectly. You can't really see it here, but there's intermittent caulking there. There's a gap. So in the event, if there ever was water infiltration, water would find its way down and take the least path of resistance and weep out on the original terracotta. And so you have a plan for water management long term. And so just going back to the original elevation for reference, we're going to zoom in and focus on these double hungs on the top floor. And then you'll also see that there's the round top windows on top of them. And then you see double hungs on the rest of the front elevation. So what I showed you just now, what we finished was the back side, right? All those were original steel windows. That was not the case in the front or side elevation. These were not steel windows. So totally different application, but still the same window solution, just applied and installed differently. And again, anybody can supply windows. It's the consultation, it's the advice, it's the experience, it's the collaboration, it's the technical support team that really, in my opinion, helps drive these to be successful. So let's take a peek at that. So here's us on that top floor that I circled out on the scaffolding. And so you can see here are those round top, and here were the original double hung windows. So when removed, you have these big cavities, deep cavities in here. So what we propose is to put a buck system, a wood buck system in there. But what we also found is when we removed those arch tops, that there's this faux wall behind there. So if you're standing on the inside right? If you're standing on the inside, and we'll draw Mike Anderson there. There we go. If Mike Anderson was on the inside and he's looking out, you can't see. So how do we contend with all this? And then how do we deal with these cavities when we put in the buck? And then how do we tie it into the original stonework? And how do we make it waterproof? And how do we make sure we don't screw it up? So what we see on the right here is us just in that process. This is just us coming up with the plan. So what I don't want anybody to look at this rigid pan and say, wow, that's a horrible rigid pan. Yes, it is. That would not be what we would advocate during actual install. This was purely for mock-up purposes, right? So us coming up with an idea of putting a rigid pan in there for long-term water management purposes. We always say that a rigid pan is cheap insurance, as it does a great job in managing water. But let's go ahead and go a little further. Here's just kind of a close-up, right? We got our buck system in here that filled in this deep cavity that's behind here. But again, how do we contend with all this? So luckily, Marvin has a wide variety of extruded aluminum casing profiles. This isn't all of them. This is just some of them. But what we ended up selecting, I believe, if I recall in this project, was the Grayson casing because it closely resembled the original wood casing on this building. And this is what the San Diego Historic Board approved. And again, just going back to, this wasn't the final drawing, but this was just us coming up with some ideas, collaborating with all the people I mentioned. And then here's where that void is, right? There was the buck. We put that in there to fill the void, right? Here's the wood buck, and here's the window. But then there was this void, so we proposed to fill that void with Sika Quick mortar. And then you can see how our casing here, which comes applied to the window, and how it all ties together. So let's look at that in real life. So we took it from paper, we took it from talking, we took it into the real world. So on this picture here, let's focus on this one first. You can see the window, the Marvin Next Generation double hung, butt up against the buck system that we put in. We used a different subsill here than we did on the back elevation. And following with the installer, he ran these long and notched it out so we could tuck that subsill nicely into that void. And then again, we were going to fill this with Sika Quick mortar to fill this cavity. And so what you see here on the left side, you can see that nice Grayson casing butted up nicely against the original stonework. You see the round top in place. This was already, we didn't remove this. This was just painted. And then the Marvin Next Generation double hung window in here. And then you can see down here the subsill and how it all ties together. So quite a lot of collaboration, a lot of technical support, a lot of consulting to bring all this together. And again, this is what they were looking for. And again, there's other manufacturers brought to the table, but it was BMD as the Marvin manufacturer rep collaborating with our great dealer network and helping with our tech department really to drive the solution on this project. And this is just my boss, Chris Martin, there with the hard hat, just kind of showing us we're consulting the installer, just making sure that we were on site to make sure that we answered any questions during the initial install. And here's just some beauty shots I took from online. This is from Vogue Australia, just showing the front elevation of what it looks like now. Here's another beauty shot as well. And this is the inside courtyard where there's a restaurant. Just some nice beauty shots. And this was from Forbes magazine. So really happy with how this project turned out. Let's go to the next case study. So this was commercial restoration. This is in Manhattan Beach, California. This is about 3 blocks from the ocean. So about 3 blocks from the Manhattan Beach Pier. And so this is not the finished picture. We're starting with where we began. So obviously this was antiquated and needed an upgrade. So you have your 3rd floor, your 2nd floor, and your 1st floor down here. And so what happened on this one is our Marvin dealer asked me to meet the vice president of Skechers Construction in that building that we were just looking at, as well as the architect. It was Herdman Architect. The general contractor was KCI Construction. And we all sat at a conference room. And originally we were brought there just to handle some punch-out windows and just to discuss that. But the architect slid basically this across the table and said, you couldn't do a storefront rendition in aluminum clad with wood to the inside, could you, in the Marvin product? Because we'd really like to have something more energy efficient, and we'd really like to have something a little bit more different than the status quo storefront solution. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So all these red lines, all they represent essentially here is the collaboration of us going back and forth with the architect to come up with the design. And here's just a snapshot of one shop drawing that we created for very large Marvin narrow frame awning windows, large mold assemblies, and they connected in a 90-degree fashion. And so this was just the drawing that we created showing where the steel structure was going to be here, right? Here's our windows. And then this represents all the aluminum extrusions that Marvin has and how we're going to tie all that together. So again, just one snapshot of the collaboration that we had to support this project. And here's just looking. So if you look here on the left, here's that shop drawing I printed out in my printer. And this is actually the third floor. All the walls are removed. This is the outside scaffolding. So we were literally walking on top of the third floor where it used to exist. And you can see that there's chalk. You see here, right here, you see a corner sample window. And we literally sat out there with the fabricator, with the installer, and we had everything chalked out and everything measured because we didn't want we didn't want anything to go wrong. And so over here on the right, you kind of see that fabrication that was done for us. And let's just continue down. So this is what it looks like. So this is what it looks like now, right? So you see here, these are all narrow frame awning windows. They came factory mold about 2 wide. So about every 2 wide, there was some structure required by others. And we used the Marvin standard aluminum mold covers to cover those. So we had a consistent look all the way across. And you can see how we did that nice 90-degree extrusion profiles to tie all that together. And so it looks as if it came off the truck as one large assembly, but obviously it was pieces put together. Also like you to notice on the bottom here, same window, same Marvin narrow frame awning window, but notice the contrast. You have a contemporary look on the bottom and you have a traditional look on top. So you can get that contemporary look with Marvin, that traditional look with Marvin. You could even get a modern look with Marvin. So now just for a focus on here, this represents the second floor. This is just a snapshot of the third floor mid-construction, just showing you here. But right here, what you see is a Marvin clad ultimate multi-slide door system that biparts in the middle. So just to go back for reference, this is the opening we're talking about here. There was no multi-slide in place there. There was just basically glass doors and just regular glazing and not that. It's a little bit of an antiquated look, to put it lightly. So big transformation. So this is, again, just coming back to collaboration, making sure that we're forward thinking. What is this going to look like? How do we want this to perform? This is on the ocean. This is on the coast. We're thinking wind-driven rain. There's no overhang. And so on the left here just represents us showing the different thresholds that come with the door system. There's a water management system. There's a ADA system that has no water management, which is what they ultimately went with. So what we had to ensure to counter that was, do we have slope so any water infiltration would keep going to the exterior of the building? We had to ensure that they were going to put in a nice drainage system. And what was nice is we did get some heavy-duty storms right after. It does rain in Southern California on occasion, and we got some nice heavy-duty storms on the coast and performed beautifully, no issues. But that's just kind of showing you, this is still mid-construction. You can kind of see here they're not quite done cleaning everything up, but just a total transformation of a boardroom from what it was to what it is now. Here's just an inside shot. I know it looks like it's a curved multi-slide. That's not the case. That's just my simple iPhone doing a pano view to try and capture it. But I just wanted to show what a total transformation if they're inside this boardroom looking out, or vice versa if they're on the street looking in. Again, this is wood to the inside, factory painted black, ebony on the exterior, that nice Kynar 260511 finish from Marvin on the outside. And then that brings us to the last part of this case study. If you remember, I told you the story that the architect said you can't mimic storefront in aluminum clad, can you, or come close to it. Well, this was the solution that our tech department and I and our dealer came up with. So you see Marvin commercial doors. Again, these are all aluminum clad, wood to the inside. And yes, Marvin does make true commercial doors. And then what you see are Marvin narrow frame direct glaze windows. And so these would come factory mold, I want to say every 2. And what we would do is here we had a solid mull. Marvin has a wide variety of mull options. And so we did a Marvin solid mull, and then there would be structure by others here, and we would put a mull cap over it so we'd get the consistent look all the way across. So let's take a peek at that. So here it is, just mid-construction. Again, we're all about waterproofing. We're on site just making sure that SAF's being put on there, everything's being installed correctly. Here's just kind of showing you what I was highlighting earlier in the vertical. So you have like a solid mull here, and then you have a mull covering structure on the other side. And then I really want to highlight this as well. So here's the energy performance of these windows. So it's not just the glass, it's the whole window system, including the frame. So you add a 0.30 U factor and a 0.29 solar heat gain coefficient. You would not be able to get that with just standard traditional storefront. So the energy efficiency of this building was drastically improved. And then of course you're getting just a nice upscale look compared to just the status quo storefront. And just kind of showing you again, just continuing, this is just what it looks like. You can see our commercial doors. You can see how we mimic storefront, and it continued over here. And we even had to wrap it around some 90-degree corners, and we did wrap those with clad like you saw earlier, and just kind of showing you what it looks like. And here's just a couple of last beauty shots to close it out. Again, contrasting, you see the awning window here in a contemporary style. Same awning window up here in a traditional style. And you can see this was mid-construction, us mimicking our storefront. And another beauty shot, just wanted to show you the proximity of it to the ocean. And if you've got to go to a job site like 15 times, it's not a bad job site to go to. But I do want to highlight this roundhouse building right here. This is always on the news when they do the weather for KABC Los Angeles. And we actually did this whole roundhouse building, which is an aquarium in Marvin Ultimate Clad product as well, prior to us doing this project. So pretty cool that we have 2 projects here. And we actually did one 2 blocks over that's just finishing construction now as well. So that's the case study. We'd be glad to open it up to any questions.
Thanks, Richard. Those projects were just absolutely incredible. Again, I love, one key word that I picked up from there was collaboration. The collaboration with the architects, the design team, the client, the installers, just a beautiful job. Love the finished, the hotel, the Skechers building. One quick question that I had for you is how long did that full remodel or completely restoration of the hotel take?
The hotel took about a year. I think I said it was a year and a half, give or take a few months is what it took. The windows obviously wasn't that portion of it, but the whole thing took about a good year and a half. And it was down to just on the inside, there were no walls whatsoever. There were just 4 walls on every floor. In between was just nothing but rough, pure, original, wonky concrete. And so they had to literally, it was kind of, I guess they had a blank slate if you looked at it from a glass full perspective.
Okay. Yeah, it just looks like an unbelievable transformation.